All right, everybody, welcome back to the Thrivers Ed podcast. Today, I am sitting down with business strategist and best-selling author Finola Howard. Finola is a marketing genius, a branding expert, and a proponent of a joyful business, which I am 100% all about. And today, we are talking about brand positioning. So I am so excited to have Finola on the show today. Welcome to Thrivers Ed.
I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, brand positioning sounds very catchy and like this kind of buzzword type of thing. What exactly is it, and what do you see people tend to get wrong about it?
I think the first thing is that I think it scares everybody
Yeah.
because it means that, in its best sense, it means that you have to choose the space you want to own. And you have to choose it in a way that feels like you, that brings you joy, because I'm all about the joy. And it's important that it's all about the joy because the joy is the indicator of your genius. And what positioning is about really leaning into genius. So I could give you the technical thing of you start with purpose, mission, vision of what the reason is for the business. You look at your customers, you look at your competitors, you find your gap. If you have employees, you check in with them as well. You look at the trends and then you find your positioning. And that's true. But it's really much simpler than that. It's what are you here to do? What are you here to accomplish? And what is your unique gift that you bring to the world that only you can give? And what I think to answer the question of what people get wrong is they think they're not unique.
Mm. You had my brain kind of fired up there for a little bit because you're talking about a lot of things that are very kind of sciency and study, and I'm going to dive into the research and the market, and then we get into this other piece of like, who am I really? What is my true value here? That's not just something I can find in a book. And so I imagine melding those two pieces can be really challenging, especially for a nerd like me who wants the data and the science and the facts and the kind of data-driven decision versus like who really is this person? Like, what is she here to do? What really lights me up? It's challenging to kind of find that answer in a book. Do you find that with your clients of like that one side is tends to be a lot harder than the other?
Totally, but you can prove it with data. You can say, like, there's a book by, I can't remember the name of it, but it's 10x. And it's this old idea of, and we spoke about this before, Marcy, which was the whole 80-20 rule. We should be spending 80% of our time on the thing that on the thing that is our uniqueness. Like, Pareto principle is spending 20% of your time, sorry, 80% of your turnover is coming from 20% of your customers. So we're flipping that idea and we're saying, what if you actually spent 80% of your time on that thing you used to only spend 20% of your time on? I would look at it from this perspective, which is this idea of leaning into genius. And it's this idea of, it comes back from that idea of Pareto principle, which is you should be spending all of your time on the stuff that matters in your business. It's that 80-20 rule. And it's, are you spending, like, mostly a lot of people are spending 20% of their 20% of the time is generating 80% of their turnover, right? So it's this idea. And it's this idea of taking it another step forward. What if you spent 80% of your time on doing the things that you are genius at? And what would that do to your business? And that's why they talk about 10xing at that stage. But it's much simpler than that. It's that when we are at our happiest, when we are, in our flow, we actually do our best work. So if you're a designer, and you're designing and you're happy and you produce good work, you're in your flow. If you are really bad at design and you spend all your time doing that, then you're not going to make any money because you won't be any good. So why would you not spend time doing the things that you're really good at and leaning into that and actually getting better and better and better and allowing that genius to actually grow and to evolve so that you're actually feeding a business that's in continual growth because at every moment you're getting better and better and better. And then you can delegate the stuff that you left go of.
I can hear two fears come up, and I don't know if this is just
Yay.
personal, but I'm hearing two fears. One is if I really lean into that thing that I really love doing, maybe I won't love it anymore. I've turned it into a quote unquote business, right? I've really just taken away the joy that was there because now it's something that I have to do to kind of make money. And the other fear potentially coming up is maybe what really love doing isn't a viable business model, right? Maybe it's, I don't know, it's a kind of an antiquated belief potentially that, art doesn't make money, or some of these things that I really love doing. How am I possibly going to make money doing what it is that I really love? I love to read. I found it really hard to make a job reading. I became a librarian eventually at one point, but sometimes it's just really hard to monetize that thing that we truly love doing. What are your thoughts on either of these stances?
I think it's your perspective. So there's a couple of things that come up for me when you say that. One is one of the things, the blocks that I see people having is the fear. So, like, first ask yourself, are these two things coming up? Is this because I'm scared? And am I stopping? So, when these two issues come up for me, do I then stop thinking about them and just run away? So, most of the time when I see this stuff coming up, you do this exercise of poking at that question, poking, going, well, what does it really mean? Is it true that I couldn't make money about this? Is there anybody else making money at reading? Could I actually be a script writer, script editor? Could I be, what are the things, if I explore that limiting belief I have, and let's just assume it's a limiting belief, because I think I work off the premise that our uniqueness is our compass, our joy is our compass. It will point us in the right direction. And people, and here's the other thing that's really important. We need to lean into uniqueness in order to be different. That's the whole nature of uniqueness. And most of the time, what happens in small businesses, they're looking around to see what everyone else is doing. And they're playing safe and looking around at what everyone else is doing and saying, oh, I'll do that because that's the safe thing to do. But in actual fact, it's not safe at all. It's not safe remotely for you to be like everyone else. Conformity in business does not serve you. Difference serves you. Your difference serves you because it's easy. That's the whole point about uniqueness and joyful. And who said you can't make money at art? There's lots of people that can prove you wrong. Who said you can't do that? Why is there always this sacrifice of wealth and joy, abundance and joy? They can't possibly live together, could they? I firmly believe they can.
I love that. And that's the thing too. I think when you really come at it with that kind of joyful perspective, instead of holding yourself back from fear, when you hold yourself back with fear, that's the results that you're going to get. But when you lean in, you just said it was going to be easy, right? Being
Yeah.
yourself should be easy. I know it's not always in the world that we live in,
I don't think it
but
is ever that easy,
no,
but I
but
think
it
there's
should be.
ease.
Yes, it should be easier than trying to wear a mask every day and try to copy what everybody else is doing, given the fact that they have different experience, different skill sets, different interests, all of these different pieces that they're not living in the exact same spot that you are. No one is taking up that exact same spot. So I do appreciate that it should
There's a
feel
really
more ease.
great, a
Go
really
ahead.
great quote by Oscar Wilde that says, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken."
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. So, I mean, again,
Mhm.
fitting into your own zone is going to be easier than trying to squish yourself into somebody else's. Do you have examples either from your own business or clients that you've worked with where we've maybe done that pivoting where you've got this business or somebody else that you've worked with where they were trying to fit and then you helped them shift into who they really are and kind of the results that came from that?
I can talk to you about a client I had this morning. I would say every one of my clients, every one of them shy away from uniqueness because immediately imposter syndrome comes up. Who am I? Do I deserve to do this? Am I worthy of doing this? Look, how can I do this? So, I mean, this is where we come back to that lovely commercial thing at the start, which is looking at your competitors and finding the gap. You're doing gap analysis, competitor analysis. But this is where your gap is. Your uniqueness will always be where your gap is. So I was working with a HR consultant this morning, and we looked at all the HR practices. We did that competitor analysis bit, and most of the time, what I find is you really only have to do top level look at competitor analysis because it should be really clear. It should be really clear of, well, what's their positioning? How are they pricing? What are the products that they're offering? How are they communicating? That's not that hard to actually figure out when you look at their websites and look at their presence and their footprint. And what we discovered was, well, they're trying to be all things to all people and they're making this space very nebulous. And what we decided was, no, we're going to own a specific space, a really strong space. And I can't share what it is now because she hasn't,
Sure.
hasn't launched it yet. And we're going to focus on one key area, which, as we delved deeper, was actually the passion piece, the reason why she entered HR in the first place. It was in a specific area that she could lean into. And then she could kind of downgrade her other products or make them part of a suite, but simpler because she had only one core goal in mind, whereas her competitor was going, we'll do all your HR. We're like, no,
Yeah.
we'll just do this piece. because this is where we can help you grow your business. This is the piece that will matter. Other examples are tone of voice can be a point of difference in terms of how you approach something. And thinking of another coach who, working with her, she was ballsy. She had a different kind of lean in and had a different approach. She looked at where the world was in terms of women and men and patriarchy and things like that. And this was a way that we could lean in to actually rewrite the rules of how women are conditioned. That was a positioning piece because she could own that. I can give you
Mm.
enormous numbers of examples. I found a positioning point for a company that I worked with that does structural cabling. And what we found was they did, I remember going to visit them and they were actually chopping up fruit. Someone in the business, in the company, was actually chopping up fruit for all of the people that were working there that morning. So they had multiple trays. And I was going, God, that's really nice what you're doing here. And they were like, yeah, we do this for each other because we all want to be healthier. And I went, God, that's really interesting. So this is cabling structures, right? And I went, God, that's very personal of you and that you offered that to me. And I just felt this human connection. And I thought I took that as a lead to something else to dig a little bit deeper because I have conditioned myself to watch for flags, for things that would be clues, like a private investigator looking for the clues. And what we realized was this structured cabling was actually the cabling that ran the monitors when babies are born, or ran connected the stuff that was going to deliver you your personal gift from Amazon, the conveyor belts. We just looked at the human piece, the impact, all because I spotted fruit.
I mean, what I'm getting from this is that there's different. At first, when you were starting to talk about this, I thought I knew where this was going, where it was like understanding your niche, right? It is. I'm having a very specific kind of niche when you're talking about that HR person versus the we do everything. It's a very specific layering down in there, and then you went into the voice, right? You're talking about this person that has a very ballsy, in your face type of coaching, and that's her style. And then we have this third where it's really more about their values, right? That they're taking care of their employees. They have this this spread out there. That's not exactly what they do. What they're doing, you said, was cabling, I believe, and that is
No,
a
but
very
what the angle for that was, what we realized in by going in that road,
yeah.
we realized that their cables actually connected the dots in a hospital that actually turned on the monitors, baby monitors when they're born,
Yeah.
or that somehow that all of the cabling that they did brought the human touch to things. It was the impact on their customers. It wasn't just about values, it was how they did it and also how everything that they touched in how they worked and their impact on the world was something human. So we
Mm.
humanize something that's thought of as stuck in a wall or above us. And the positioning allowed us to do that. And it allowed them to open doors for how they work. So even if they are, when they're on site, they are uh, they're normally on a site that's a greenfield site which is being construction, and
Mhm.
often these cabling companies are difficult to work with, whereas they actually just made things easier for the construction company or the other people they were working with because of how they were. But yeah, I suppose it is values led. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's yeah, it's stripping back the why, I guess, could be even part of that. It's like, why are we doing
it's
this? We're
always.
saving hospital babies, right? We're so it's just kind of taking it another level versus just here's a service I provide that you can get from X, Y, and Z kind of
But
person.
no, nobody buys just the product.
Of
They
course not.
buy the
Yeah.
person that they're working with. So
Yeah.
purpose for me, purpose, mission, vision is a starting point. And I remember looking to working with another company and they groaned when I mentioned the word purpose, mission, vision, because purpose, mission, vision is often stuck in a wall or never done properly, never delved deep enough. Because if you don't dig deep enough, you don't find truth.
So is purpose, mission, vision what you would say is the kind of the
Why?
yes, but I'm saying like the tie between those two things, three things, I guess. We had those three examples where we had focusing on one specific thing. You had a specific voice and a
Always.
personality. So it's that purpose. So then you are an investigator like you to find those flags for us. How do we start?
The starting point for me, right, is always, because it's the question I ask always. And everybody's probably read Simon Sinek's book, so we know why. So, why is
Yeah.
purpose? Why are you here? But why people don't dig deep enough? People are often stuck with mission. Mission is how. How am I going to do that? So you will always think smaller if you stick to mission, how I'm going to, do X, Y, and Z. So I'll always challenge you of what's the reason you're here beyond making money? And that usually calls a flag in. So your first step is purpose. Why? What's the reason you're here beyond making money? What's the change you want to make in the world? And that can happen for you as a coach, as a jewelry maker, as a construction company, as everything. So, what's the why? And even if you're a corporate, you're still allowed to have purpose. So, corporates find struggle with doing purpose because they don't dig deep enough. Small companies and solopreneurs struggle with purpose because they don't think they're big enough. But it's all valid. Everyone has a reason for being here, no matter what size the business is. Mission is how you're going to do that. Like, are you going to do that one company at a time, one wrist at a time if you're a jewelry maker? And then the last thing, which is really important, which is vision, which is what does mission success look like? What does success look like for you? How do you know you've got there? Because entrepreneurs invariably forget to celebrate their wins. So, how will you know you reached it?
Especially the perfectionist type of people where we just kind of let things go and don't celebrate the wins. My husband and I we have a list, we call it our badass list, that we write things down, and we are terrible at doing it for ourselves. And that's why we have to have a partner in this, right? To be like, as soon as he says something, it's like, go put that, because it is so hard to acknowledge, yes, this is the next step now. It's like, we need to stop. And that's really key.
And date it, and also date it, because then it becomes goal led.
Oh, love that. I haven't been dating it, but that's really clear. And you get to see kind of the progress of things that are moving forward.
Because then I will always trickle down and go, okay, so generally you'll date it and you'll date it like 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Because 5 years allows you to dream. It's really important to dream in this. This is the only time when you're doing purpose, mission, vision, it's the only time you get to dream. And when you have vision, when you articulate it as a date, as a what does success look like, it actually grounds the dream and it actually makes it more capable of success. Then you flow downward again and you do your annual plan. And it's
Mm.
directly connected to 5 year plan
Yeah.
because you're trickling it down. We're always in brand positioning also, we're always looking for this thread that weaves through everything. So it has to go 5 year plan, 1 year plan. It has to go brand positioning. What's my, where is my unique point of difference? How am I communicating? What does it look like in my content pillars? All of that. It always comes from here and trickles down. And when you do that, it means that everything is coherent. When you really work through all that, you start to see any holes that you have in your positioning so that you can fill them. You plug the gaps and then you keep moving. And that allows you to have this kind of very strong solo voice in the marketplace that stands out because it's built on uniqueness.
I have an AI question for you.
Yeah.
I use ChatGPT every single day. I know a lot of my clients do as well. And I'm really curious your thoughts on AI's effect on branding. I bring this up because I have seen a lot of people, in my opinion, and I'm not the branding expert here, but over relying on ChatGPT, Claude, whatever tool that they're using, and that coming through in their language and even in some of their decisions that they're making because they are so heavily relying on this AI tool. What are your thoughts on AI's impact on branding and your USP?
My thought is it's an enormously beneficial tool, right? First of all, it gets everything done faster. But I see the same thing happen with people who are over consulted. Okay. It's the
Okay.
same thing. You lose your own voice. You forget who you are. You transfer the decision making piece of your being to something else or someone else. People often do that if they are, I've seen people be over consulted. So they keep asking different people the same question until they get the answer they want, or they get overwhelmed. And therefore, they lose faith with themselves. They don't trust themselves. Therefore, they relegate themselves to not being experts, to not being subject matter experts or thought leaders because they've lost their own power over their own voice. You've got to use AI to allow you to leverage the voice you already have, not to replace the voice you have.
So how do you toe that balance then? How do you know if you've maybe taken a step too far and you're over relying, you're being over consulted, you're going a little too far and pulling back into to really yourself?
That's personal development stuff. It's really understand, journal, like get a place for you to have a voice that's not with any device around you, not with any person around you. Journaling, daily practice around journaling to kind of explore all of this stuff to really see who you are yourself, because you can't lean into genius if you don't know who you are. And ChatGPT is not going to tell you what your genius is. In fact, you should be correcting ChatGPT when you're talking about your stuff. It's like, no, this is my perspective. It should be having a really kind of collaborative relationship, like that it's a copywriter or something else. I'm always concerned when I see prompts around big strategy prompts. I think
Mm,
they're useful to get you to think differently, but I think humans can help you think differently because they haven't been, they're not there to. AI is going to lie to you if it has to. So here's an interesting one, right? I have another client who's on a program of mine, and their way of communicating or their way of processing information was they always perfectionist, okay? Gathering in all the information to be safe, to make the right choice, okay? And now she's taught ChatGPT to do the same. So previously she was overwhelming herself with all of her information, and now
mm,
she's taught ChatGPT to do the same thing. That doesn't serve her. The
yeah.
solution to that was get a different email address and teach it differently. So
Mm,
you, and I mean that's a different topic than understanding your voice. But to understand your voice, you have to use it. You have to
yeah.
speak. You have to journal. You have to explore. You have to push your own comfort zone. Like it's algorithm will keep you in the same bubble. You want to get out of your bubble because you want to move your genius.
I think you're spot on. I think it's a really valid conversation to kind of think about how it can benefit us and how it can also kind of hold us back a little bit and just being aware of where its limitations are and really leaning into our own voice, which is kind of the theme of today. Switching gears just a
And our own, really important, I think, as well, is to embrace your own power, permission to have your own power, not to hand it to somebody else, not to hand it to AI, not to hand it to an advisor, because ultimately it's your ass on the line.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on there.
I
What would you
said I said to a client this morning, and because I said you're at this point, this juncture of the leap into your genius. So you can stay safe where you are. That's okay. Or you can leap. And the thing is, you have to decide whether you're ready to leap or not. You have to make that choice. And it's totally up to you. And remember, and you have to make that decision. And I said, because remember, I could be wrong.
that ties so perfectly into the question I was actually going to ask you because I was
Okay.
just thinking of the the people that are afraid, right? You're talking about, are you ready to make that leap? And it's, maybe they can see the value in really being unique and standing out, but it's scary. It's scary to put ourselves out there. I work with a lot of women
Totally.
who, and it's actually kind of coming from my own story where we talk about alcohol and we're coming out about,
Mhm.
and this isn't the most I don't know what the word I'm looking for here. It's not like it's not as staunch as like some kind of political opinions, but there's still very strong opinions about even alcohol or coming out and sharing our stories or even starting our new business and worrying we're gonna have judgment from friends, family, and the other. So what is your advice for people that are truly terrified of being seen? Maybe they realize that it's kind of necessary, but they're just afraid of the rejection, the comments, the thoughts, the whatever.
I think it's not a simple answer.
Okay.
So I wrote a book about it. That's the whole point of the book. So I went through this whole, there's never one thing. It's never just imposter syndrome. It's never just, power dynamics. It's never just all of these things. But there is kind of a pathway of chipping away at stuff to actually kind of take away the layers that are holding you back and step through them and start to give yourself permission to believe that you can be you and that the bigger version of you is the better version of you, is the truer version of you. And one of the phrases that I often speak about is, and this is the thing that terrifies people the most, and I know because it terrified me, which is the price of the new life is the old one.
Mm,
And it's terrifying because I also in the book, I tell this story that, so I was in a bad relationship, just to share this with you, because it's the same thing. There's always a leap, right? So I remember being in the shower, and it came to a point where my ex wanted us to reunite, okay? And I was at this juncture of I was in, and then I remember this split second where it would have been easier because it was familiar to go back. So even though it was horrible, right, and not constructive and not good for me, I still knew how to navigate it. And so to go back would be easier because I would be actually in my comfort zone, even though it was incredibly uncomfortable and unhealthy,
Yeah.
still comfortable because I knew it, right? But your definition of normality moves all the time. Remember, it can get progressively worse. So I also knew that. But in the moment, I knew it'd be easier just to go back, right? And you're whispering it because you can't say that out loud, right? And the flip side was, or I could go towards joy and be happy. And that was terrifying. That was terrifying because that wasn't known. I didn't know that place. But I knew the dark place because I could navigate that. But the bright, shiny place where I could have joy, I don't even know what that looked like anymore. And I remember the moment I just said, what the hell, I'm just going to do it anyway. And for me, it's the same in the business. The price of the new life is the old one. So the familiarity of all the safe stuff that's really not that safe, being like everybody else is really not that safe. Whereas you could really shine if you take the leap. And you can prepare yourself for the leap by doing that positioning work and leaning into it. You could have joy. Could you imagine that? And we're entrepreneurs, we are dreamers that manifest something. Why would we not do that?
I love that answer so much for so many reasons. First of all, I mean, there was a mic drop moment of, the price of your new life is the old one. You said it much more eloquently than I did there, but it's taking that idea of everything good happens outside your comfort zone and really kind of doubling down on that. Like that sounds nice and a frou-frou or whatever, but like to say, no, if you really want this, you have to make a choice here. And going to your story here, it felt easier to stay, but I mean, we get to choose our hard. We can either have something that's hard in the moment and then feels easier later, or we can just have something that's quote unquote easier, but then we're giving up on that dream. And so we get to choose where that uncomfortable feeling is. And I feel like sometimes we lose the perspective there of actually staying where we are right now is much harder. It feels easier in the moment, but it's never ending because we never get that joy or that dream or whatever we had at the end of it. My own story starting my own business, I had asked some people for advice because out of total fear, do you think anybody can do this? Like, do you think I might be a good coach? Whatever. I wasn't getting the answer I wanted. And one day I was just sitting there. I was, I think, in a hot yoga class or something, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. And I just was like, like it was just that same like, I'm
I'm
just
glad
gonna
you
do
said fuck it.
it.
I didn't want to say fuck it on your
Yeah, that's
podcast.
fuck it. It's fuck it. I'm gonna do it anyway. And I think when we can get to that one decision, that's really the only decision that we really need to get to is that fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. And then everything rolls off from there. It's really just saying
Completely.
yourself, let me just get to that one space. So yeah. All right. So someone's at that place now. They're deciding, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm going to really lean into who it is that I am. I want to know, how do they take all this into action? What's your Thrive in 5 for today?
Okay. So first, we did the first one already.
Yeah.
Purpose, mission, vision. And I would say to you, you probably won't get it right first, but just start the ball rolling of dreaming. I always do it. I do this exercise in the book, which is a what if spreadsheet. So imagining, what if I was standing on a stage and I held them in my hand, held them in the palm of my hand. What if? So, first step is to dream and do it with what if, because what if allows you to do anything, allows for all possibilities. So, there's no caveats. There's no caveats in what if, and there's no caveats in dreaming. So, that's your starting point. Okay. The second thing is, if there's things that are stopping you, like those limiting beliefs, and you find these phrases coming out, I'd write them down. Write the phrases that are coming, going, because I remember even digging into my own phrases, and or my own patterns. And one of my own patterns was kind of looking for permission to be everything I could be,
Mm.
because I would have come from this. And I think most women have come from this thing of being told you're too much, you're too loud, or you're too soft, or you're too this. So this is my other clue for you. Your too muchness is your clue to your uniqueness. So that's number two.
Okay.
So I changed my order. So what if number two is your too muchness is your clue, okay, to your uniqueness. Three is the write the stuff down that's telling you you're too much. And actually just interview it, poke at it, like go, yeah, but really, and just take it to the nth degree of, that's just because most often people just stay with the sentence that's in their mind. So it's that process of reframing of what are the facts that support that? How can I change that? Do I truly believe that? Am I just looking to give myself permission to actually be all I can be? So that's three. I would then look at who am I here to serve? I would say, who is the person? Because positioning is not in a vacuum. We have to look at it being commercial. We have to look at who is the customer, who is the one person I'm here to serve. I came here, and this is always your what we call an origin story. I always tell the story of when I was my son is 16 now, but when he was 3 or 4, I was in the car. I was driving him to my mom's. She was minding him for the day before I went to work. And in the back of the car, he says, "Mom, what are you for?" And I went, and I went, "Okay, what do I say?" And then I didn't know what to say to him. And I said, "Oh, I'm for loving you, Sean." And he was like, "Hmm." And then because he kind of blew me off. Yes, clearly I was very evolved. So I turned to him and I said, "Well, what are you for, Sean?" And he just went immediately, "I'm for digging." And I just thought, if we could answer that as entrepreneurs with that degree of clarity, we're laughing. Okay. So, so I think I got sidetracked there. I'll end up with 10 for you. But anyway, customers. I want to talk about customers. I ended up talking about my son. But anyway, customers. So yeah, what are you for? So you're here, the origin story of why did you start the business? Who was it that you wanted to help? But what's the story behind that? Because there's always a story behind that. You will use that story later. Okay. And so that gives you, and really name that customer, like see them in your head, see them like you're having a conversation with them in a cafe or wherever it is they are, to really get under the hood and understand what is it that their pain, their problem, their dreams that you think that you can help them with. So that's really critical because this is, having this marriage between what you want out of your business and what they want from your business. So we need the two of those. Outside of that, I'd look for, around that, I'd be looking for what's the real difference between you and your competitors. Don't necessarily spend too long here because you can see it really quickly. And you've got to lean into the unique piece that you've got. And when you have that, then you've got to get visible.
Mm.
No
That
hiding.
was That's fantastic. I'm not going to forget that story about digging here for digging. That is just kids just say the darndest things, but they don't have the filters that we do. They're not trying to
Mm.
shape themselves into somebody else. They just truly are who they are. And so using that as an example, like absolutely, he knows what he's all about, and we can do that too. We just had to break down all the barriers we've been building up through society. This has been such a fun conversation, Finola. Where can people connect with you? Where can they grab your amazing book? Like, tell me all the places.
Well, simplest place, finolahoward.com. And if you just Google my name, it's kind of a unique name. Hey, hey. So in all the socials, so Instagram, wherever, but just finolahoward.com and listen to Your Truth Shared podcast. And the book is called What If Joy Was How You Measured Success and the Money Proved You Right?
Love that. Thank you so much for joining me. All the links are going to be in the show notes. I'm so glad to have you today. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.